Welcome back. You are watching CNN News 18 and we are starting this bulletin with a piece of breaking news. Air India's first statement after Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau's preliminary report. It says, we acknowledge receipt of preliminary report and are working closely with the stakeholders, including the regulators. We continue to fully cooperate with the AAIB and other authorities as their investigation progresses. That is the statement, latest statement that is coming in from Air India, and we are joined by Sanjay Suri on this broadcast. Very good morning to you, Sanjay. What possible steps are expected to be taken by Air India in the future now?
Well, Air India has issued a very bland statement simply acknowledging that it has seen this report. It has not said anything further. To be fair to Air India at this stage, by way of a response, this is a preliminary report. It's not the final report. The investigations continue, and we do know that this preliminary report gives us a narrative. It lays out the sequence of what happened. It does not offer an opinion, it doesn't offer a conclusion as to what went wrong, but the description itself is very telling. Very clearly, something went very badly wrong with the supply of power to the engines and to both engines. The power supply failed within 1 second of one another, so almost simultaneously, and as a result of that, there was no fuel that was injected into the engines and the aircraft lost power. So clearly there is something here that has gone very badly wrong within the aircraft. The report also makes clear that at one stage the recording of the conversations between the two pilots in the cockpit established that it is really not pilot error that we are looking at here, because there had been some allegations of that kind, completely unfounded, one has to say, and one pilot asked the other why he has switched off the supply, the power supply, and he said he has not. So it was not something the pilots did, it's something that went wrong within the aircraft. This power supply to both engines cut off simultaneously, and that is what led to the crash. So that much at least is very clear from this report as the cause, even if this report is bland and relatively brief and does not point blame in so many words.
Right. Sanjay, I would request you to stay on with us. Let me go across to Arunima. Arunima, do tell our viewers, in this whole report, is there any mention of the Boeing Dreamliner, if there is a possible systematic failure on its part?
See, there's no conclusion in this report whatsoever. They've just recorded the facts, and these facts include the condition in which the aircraft took off from the Ahmedabad airport, the weather condition, and the sequence of events before it led to the crash. And also what the cockpit voice recorder has revealed, where you hear the two pilots speak to each other. One asks the other if the fuel cutoff switch has been initiated by him, and the other pilot denying that he has done so. So that's all that this report has. It does not reach any conclusion about who's responsible, whether there's a mechanical failure. There's one part, where they say that they have not made any recommendation, so to say, to either GE, the company which was making the engine, or to Boeing. It does go on to say that at this stage, investigation is continuing. Progress and investigation part of it, I'm just going to run through very quickly. The wreckage site activities, including drone photography, videography, has been done. Both engines were retrieved from the wreckage site and quarantined at a hangar near the airport. Components of interest for further examination have been identified and quarantined as well. Fuel samples taken from the Bowser. Bowser is the tanker, so to say, which fills an aircraft, fuel tank. So the fuel sample from the Bowser, which filled this particular aircraft, has been taken, and the tanks used to refuel the aircraft were tested at the DGCA lab and found satisfactory. This is important because fuel contamination was one of the theories. So the Bowser and the fuel tanks, the fuel residue has been examined, and there's nothing amiss that has been found there. Very limited amount of fuel sample could be retrieved from the aircraft per se. That has been noted. The EAFR data has been downloaded. That's how the aircraft's cockpit conversation was revealed to the investigators. Complete analysis of postmortem reports of the crew and the passengers is being undertaken to corroborate aeromedical findings with engineering appreciation as well. At this stage of the investigation, this is what I was referring to. At this stage of investigation, there's no recommended action to Boeing 787 or GE, the engine operators and manufacturers. So AIB is not asking Boeing or GE to carry out any investigation on their part. At this stage, it says investigation is continuing and the investigation team will review and examine additional evidence, record and information that is being sought from stakeholders. So that is where AIB's investigation stands at the moment. They have managed to come to a conclusion about why the engine lost thrust, but beyond that, why the fuel switch went into the cutoff mode, who was responsible for it. Some, experts we just spoke to suggested that it could be, sabotage, but AIB is not commenting on that at all. So we'll have to wait for the Civil Aviation Ministry or someone in the position of authority to come out and analyze and tell us if there's anything beyond what is written in this report.
Right. We are also joined by Payal Mehta on this broadcast. Payal, the parliamentary panel also suggested certain concerns and they raised certain matters. If you could tell our viewers about those concerns which the parliamentary panel raised.
There were in fact two parliamentary panels that actually, spoke about this aviation issue back-to-back days. One, of course, was the Public Accounts Committee meeting, where members had raised questions, especially the fact that Boeing was not present. That was also raised by one member of the ruling party, saying why was Boeing not present in the meeting. And secondly, questions were raised about the air safety and, of course, the sturdiness of the Dreamliner. I'm given to understand that, Mr. Campbell, who's the CEO of Air India, had appeared before the panel on both days, and during the PAC meeting very clearly had told the committee that, the Dreamliner is a sturdy airline. There's no reason to worry. It has, of course, meets all the standards that are required as well. And, those are very reliable and sturdy airlines, flights, in fact. That is what he had said. But members have still asked multiple questions in terms of, how the technicalities work as well. So importantly, on the second day when the Air India representative were doing a briefing for the parliamentary committee, which stands for Transport and Road, essentially that is when they had said that, there had been a 50% drop in the technical snags that they had witnessed, between 2023 and now. So obviously those are details that are emerging, but members had continued to ask questions of them as to what really happened, as to what happened to the black box, what happened to the investigation. But, of course, it was a very, very reserved and a very conservative comment coming in from Air India before the panel, because at that point in time, the report had not come out. But even now, Air India maintains that they will cooperate with the investigation. But at this point in time, they don't want to make any statement around what is really happening.
Right, Payal. Payal, now that the report is out, this means that this report will bring in new standards for air safety. How do you see this?
Well, of course, air safety has never been an issue that one can compromise. And, therefore, the members also in that committee for transport and tourism had asked very clearly that if there is no compromise, if there is a 0% compromise, how did episodes like this really happen? What is the point of you saying that we have 0% tolerance towards any casual approach as well? But if episodes like this happen, then, people actually start losing trust in the particular brand. That's exactly what the parliamentary committee had really said. And therefore, all steps are being taken. And, in fact, just as we speak, Harsh, the Civil Aviation Minister is on his way to Vizag and he's on an Air India flight as well. So that's something which, of course, the government is trying to build its own confidence, essentially saying that there's no reason for anybody to worry. Yes, such an episode has taken place and the most appropriate action is being taken. The most higher standards of international safety are being followed. Investigation is being followed, but investigation is not conclusive at this point in time. Remember, Harsh, these are preliminary investigation and there is further investigation. We are given to understand just a few days ago, the investigating team had once again gone to Ahmedabad, to match some technicalities and it's just come back from there. So the detailed investigation is still awaited.
Right. Let me go across to Sanjay Suri. Sanjay, the report also suggests that both pilots had enough rest before the takeoff and all the checks were in place. Then how do you see this then?
Well, there have been allegations made, a number of allegations. Among those was this, that it may have been a pilot error. There were some pretty wild allegations that were being made, and some of those suggested that they couldn't tell between the landing gear and the wing flaps. I mean, these were really outrageous and bizarre suggestions. But we do know from this preliminary report, even though it does not declare a conclusion in so many words, that this does not appear to have been a pilot error at all. They seem to have done everything they could, and we have on record, and as reported in this inquiry already, that there was a conversation in the cockpit and one pilot asked the other if he has switched off the fuel, has moved from run to cut-off position, because that is what had happened. He said he had not done it. So it was not a pilot command that created this problem. It was something that was within the aircraft. That we know already from the facts that have been narrated, even though the report does not declare a conclusion or a finding in so many words. We also know that there are some other issues of concern that have been flagged, which was that the ram air turbine was deployed immediately as the plane took off. Now that is very extraordinary. That is supposed to kick in if the power fails, but this was deployed already before, just as the plane took off and left the runway. Now there is a certain issue here whether this was the cause, or normally you would think that the ram air turbine kicks in when the power supply fails to supply minimal power for controls to an extent. But clearly this deployment and the running of the engines and the power system that gives them the command are mutually exclusive. You don't have the two together. So there is a question whether this was a factor. We also know that there was an advisory from the Federal Aviation Authority of the US, and that was an advisory concerning the part and the components of Boeing that command the injection of fuel, that powered the injection of fuel to the engines, and that was not done by Air India. Air India did not follow that advisory, and Air India's reason was that it was an advisory, it was not mandatory, and it has to be said that for a long spell after that there has been no mishap. So there are a number of questions here that do need to be flagged. Also, extraordinarily, the report points out that after the power was cut off, after that is they moved from run to cut off position, at some point there was a revival and engine 1 began to revive. Yeah.
Right. Right, Sanjay. I would request all my colleagues to stay on with us as we are slipping into a very short break, and when we come back, we'll look at the latest updates in the Air India crash investigation. Stay with us.